In a modest studio, a photographer struggles to keep her art alive while facing growing financial troubles. Then a millionaire businessman offers a fortune for a simple photo shoot. The client suddenly undressed without warning, leaving her in total shock. If this story caught your attention, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and tell us which city you're watching from. Stay tuned. The afternoon light streamed through the dusty windows of Riley Parker's cramped photography studio in Brooklyn. She adjusted her camera settings, capturing the last images of her client, a young musician trying to make it in New York's cutthroat industry. As the session ended and she collected her modest fee, her smile remained professional despite the tightness in her chest. That payment wouldn't even cover half of this month's rent. "These are going to look amazing," she assured him, though her mind was already racing with calculations of overdue bills. After he left, Riley slumped into her worn office chair and stared at the screen displaying her bank account balance. The numbers glared back at her, mocking her artistic integrity. She switched to her portfolio, award-winning portraits that captured raw human emotion like few photographers could. Critics had praised her extraordinary eye for authenticity, yet here she was, barely keeping the lights on. Her phone rang, interrupting her spiral of anxiety. It was Mia, her best friend since art school. "Please tell me you're coming tonight," Mia said without preamble. "The gallery opening has all the right people. You need to network, Riley." "I can't, Mia. I have edits to finish and you need to pay your bills." "I know. That's why you need to be there. These people have money to spend on photographers who capture their essence or whatever." Riley sighed, glancing at the final notice from the electric company pinned to her bulletin board. "Fine, but I'm not staying late." The Soho Gallery buzzed with Manhattan's art elite, wealthy collectors in designer clothes, sipping champagne, while discussing the merits of emerging artists. Riley felt out of place in her thrifted blazer and scuffed boots, clutching her portfolio like a shield. Mia appeared at her side, glamorous as always in her gallery assistant attire. "There's someone you need to meet," she whispered, steering Riley through the crowd. They approached a man standing alone, studying a large, abstract canvas. Even from behind, his presence commanded attention: tailored suit, broad shoulders, and an air of someone who knew his worth to the decimal point. "Mr. Blake," Mia called. "There's someone I'd like to introduce you to." He turned, and Riley immediately understood why people gravitated toward him. Ethan Blake had the kind of face that belonged in magazines: strong jawline, piercing blue eyes, and a smile that suggested he knew secrets about you. At 40, he carried himself with the confidence of someone who had never heard the word no. "Riley Parker, this is Ethan Blake. He's looking for a photographer for a special project." Ethan extended his hand. "So you're the portrait artist Mia won't stop talking about." His handshake was firm, his gaze appraising as if she were a potential investment. Riley straightened her posture. "I specialize in capturing what people hide, not what they show," she said. Something flickered in his eyes, interest, challenge, or perhaps both. "Bold claim. May I?" He gestured to her portfolio. As he flipped through her work, Riley studied him. Ethan Blake was notorious in New York circles, tech entrepreneur turned venture capitalist, known for lavish parties and dating models. The tabloids loved his extravagant lifestyle almost as much as they loved speculating about the sources of his wealth. "Impressive," he finally said, closing her portfolio. "Very honest work. I need a photographer who sees beyond facades." "What exactly is this project, Mr. Blake?" "Ethan, please." His smile didn't quite reach his eyes. "I need new portraits for several publications. Forbes, Entrepreneur, the usual suspects. My PR team wants something that shows my approachable side." Riley nearly laughed. "Ethan Blake, approachable?" The man exuded the warmth of a marble statue. "I'm not sure I'm what you're looking for," she said honestly. "My style isn't exactly corporate." "That's precisely why I'm interested." He pulled out a business card, sleek and minimalist. "My assistant will contact you with details. My offer will be generous." Before she could respond, he was gone, swallowed by admirers and business associates. Mia squeezed her arm. Do you realize what just happened? Ethan Blake could solve all your problems with one check. Or create a whole set of new ones, Riley muttered. 2 days later, an email arrived with Ethan's proposal. The figure made Riley's breath catch, enough to clear her debts and keep her studio running for months. All for 1 day's work at her studio, photographing one of New York's most eligible bachelors. She stared at her reflection in the bathroom mirror, water dripping from her face. The woman looking back had shadows under her eyes from sleepless nights worrying about eviction. Her principles had always been her North Star, refusing commercial work that felt soulless. But principles didn't pay rent. After a sleepless night, Riley accepted the offer. On the morning of the shoot, she transformed her small studio. Fresh flowers, proper lighting, even decent coffee. Small touches to make it feel more professional than it was. When Ethan arrived precisely on time, he came alone, no entourage, no assistants. "I prefer privacy for these things," he explained, surveying her space with curious eyes. "Interesting setup you have here." Riley felt suddenly self-conscious about her studio's shabby chic aesthetic. "It works for what I do." "Which is capturing truth," he said, removing his suit jacket. "So tell me, Riley Parker, what truth do you see in me?" There was something challenging in his tone that caught her off guard. She motioned toward the simple backdrop she'd prepared. "Let's find out," she said, picking up her camera. The session began professionally enough. Ethan followed her directions, though she sensed he was holding back, presenting the same polished image he showed the world. Riley pushed harder, trying different angles, different lighting, searching for a crack in his perfect veneer. "These will look like every other corporate headshot," she finally said, lowering her camera in frustration. "I need something real." Ethan's eyebrow raised. "Real? Most photographers want the fantasy." "I'm not most photographers." A strange smile crossed his face. "No, you certainly aren't." Without warning, he began unbuttoning his shirt. Riley froze as he continued, methodically, removing his tie, then his shirt, revealing a toned chest. "What are you doing?" she demanded, her voice sharper than intended. "Giving you real." His hands moved to his belt buckle. "Isn't that what you wanted?" Riley's heart pounded. This wasn't what she had agreed to. "Stop. This is completely unprofessional." Ethan paused, studying her reaction. "Interesting. Most people in your position would do anything for a client paying this much." "I'm not a pornographer, Mr. Blake," she said coldly. "And if that's what you're looking for, you can take your money elsewhere." For a moment, tension crackled between them. Then something unexpected happened. Ethan Blake laughed. Not the practiced chuckle she'd heard earlier, but something genuine that transformed his face. "You really don't care who I am, do you?" He picked up his shirt, but didn't put it back on. "Do you know how rare that is in my world?" Riley held her ground. "Put your shirt on. We can continue when you're properly dressed. At least take one shot like this," he countered. "Not nude, but unguarded. Isn't that your specialty? Seeing what others don't show?" Something in his expression had shifted. The arrogance remained, but beneath it, Riley glimpsed something else. A flicker of vulnerability so brief she might have imagined it. Against her better judgment, Riley raised her camera again. "Fine, one shot, but the shirt stays within reach." Through her viewfinder, she saw him differently, not as Ethan Blake, the mogul, but as a man with defenses carefully constructed. She adjusted her focus and captured the moment his facade slipped, revealing shadows and depth behind those confident eyes. The shutter clicked, and Riley knew immediately she had something extraordinary, a portrait that revealed the complexity behind the persona. It was the kind of image that had once defined her work, before financial desperation had dulled her edge. Ethan watched her intently. "Let me see it." "No." The refusal came instinctively. "Not yet." His eyes narrowed. "I'm paying for these photos." "And you'll get them when they're ready." Riley stood firm, though her heart raced. "That's how I work." For a tense moment, she thought he might demand his money back. Instead, a slow smile spread across his face. "You know, Riley Parker, you're the first person to tell me no in a very long time." He finally put his shirt back on. It's refreshing. As he buttoned his shirt, a proposal formed in his mind, one that would change both their lives irrevocably. "I have another offer for you," he said, his tone casual but his eyes intent. "One that goes beyond photography." Riley felt something shift in the air between them, a dangerous current she couldn't quite identify. Whatever Ethan Blake was about to propose, instinct told her it would be anything but simple. "I need a girlfriend," Ethan said, straightening his tie as if discussing the weather. Riley blinked. "Excuse me?" "Not a real one," he clarified, his expression businesslike. "I need someone to play the part for 3 months. Riley couldn't help it. She laughed. The sound echoed in the small studio, bouncing off the exposed brick walls. "Is this some kind of joke?" Ethan's face remained serious. "I assure you it's not. I have important investors coming to New York. Old money, traditional values. They're hesitant to back my latest venture because of my reputation." "Your reputation as what exactly?" Riley asked, though countless tabloid headlines answered her question. "As someone unstable, unpredictable." He shrugged. "The bachelor lifestyle made for good press in my 30s, but at 40 these investors want to see someone settled, someone trustworthy." Riley set her camera down, stunned by the absurdity of his proposal. "And you think having a fake girlfriend will convince them you're suddenly responsible?" "Not just any girlfriend." His eyes locked with hers. "Someone authentic, grounded, someone like you." The compliment, if it was one, didn't land. "I'm a photographer, not an actress." "Exactly. You're real." He gestured around her modest studio. "You built this yourself. You have integrity. You just proved that by refusing to compromise on your work. That's what I need." Riley crossed her arms. "Why me? You could hire a professional, someone who actually wants to do this." "Because you see people," he said simply. "You understood something. About me in that shot just now, I saw it in your face. And because no one would question why I'd be interested in someone who looks like you." The backhanded compliment stung. Riley was attractive in an understated way, wavy brown hair that never quite behaved, expressive hazel eyes, and a face that revealed every emotion. Not the model type Ethan usually surrounded himself with. "That's not a compliment," she said flatly. "It wasn't meant to be. It's a fact." He moved closer. "In exchange, I'll fund your photography projects for a full year. Complete creative freedom, no questions asked." Riley's breath caught. Creative freedom had become a distant dream, buried under mounting bills and commercial compromises. "That's crazy." "That's business," he countered. 3 months of your time in exchange for a year of doing what you love without financial pressure. Seems fair to me." She should have shown him the door. Yet something held her in place, not just the money, but the dangerous allure of his offer. What would it be like to create without constraint, to reclaim the artistic vision she'd been slowly sacrificing? "What exactly would this arrangement entail?" she asked cautiously. Ethan smiled, sensing her wavering resolve. "Public appearances, dinners with investors, a few strategic social media posts. We'd need a convincing backstory. Nothing physical beyond what's necessary to sell the relationship. And if I refuse, then you'll get paid handsomely for today's session and we'll part ways." His voice was neutral. "But something tells me you're intrigued." Riley turned away, buying time. Her gaze fell on her latest bank statement and the growing column of red numbers. Then to her wall of early work, photographs that had once made her proud, that had captured something genuine. "I'd need rules," she said finally. "Boundaries?" "Of course. And I'd want final approval on any photos used." "Naturally. And my own accommodation. I'm not staying with you." His smile widened. "My publicist will be thrilled by your demands for privacy, ads, authenticity." Riley felt like she was standing on a precipice, about to leap into an abyss. "I must be insane to even consider this." The line between insanity and opportunity is often quite thin. Ethan extended his hand. "Do we have a deal, Ms. Parker?" After a moment's hesitation, Riley shook his hand, feeling the weight of the decision settle in her chest. "Deal. But I reserve the right to walk away if things get too complicated." "Things always get complicated," he replied, his grip firm. That's what makes life interesting. The transformation began immediately. The next morning, Ethan's team descended on Riley's apartment, a stylist with racks of designer clothes, a makeup artist, and Vanessa, Ethan's razor-sharp publicist who regarded Riley with thinly veiled skepticism. We need to establish your public narrative, Vanessa explained, scrolling through her tablet. You met at the gallery opening, private courtship. You've been together for 2 months, but keeping it low-key. 2 months? Riley questioned, as the stylist held up different outfits against her. Won't people wonder why there's no evidence of this relationship? Ethan's known for his privacy in the early stages of relationships, Vanessa replied without looking up. And you're not exactly active on social media. It works. The stylist selected a simple black dress that Riley had to admit was beautiful. Nothing flashy, but elegant in a way her thrift store finds never were. The goal isn't to transform you, Vanessa continued, finally meeting Riley's eyes. Ethan was specific about that. We enhance, not replace. Your authenticity is apparently the appeal. The way she said it made Riley feel like a novelty act. Good to know I have appeal. Vanessa's expression softened slightly. You must, or we wouldn't be here. Ethan doesn't make impulsive decisions, especially not about business. And that's all this was, a business arrangement. Riley reminded herself of this as she was primped and styled as a car delivered her to Ethan's penthouse that evening for their first public appearance together. The elevator opened directly into his apartment, revealing a space that was surprisingly warm despite its modern luxury. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the Manhattan skyline, but it was the walls that caught Riley's attention, covered in art, not the generic pieces wealth usually dictated, but thought-provoking works from emerging artists. You actually care about art, she observed, studying a particularly striking photograph. Did you think my interest in your work was merely convenient? Ethan emerged from another room, elegant in a tailored suit. He paused, taking in her transformation. You look beautiful. Your team is skilled, she deflected, suddenly self-conscious. The canvas matters as much as the paint, he offered his arm. Ready for our debut? The charity gala was held at the Metropolitan Museum of Art, an opulent affair of New York's elite raising money while showcasing their wealth. Riley had photographed similar events, but never attended as a guest, certainly never on the arm, of someone like Ethan Blake. The reaction to their entrance was immediate, subtle glances turning into open stares, whispered conversations behind jeweled hands. Ethan Blake with an unknown woman, not a model, not an actress, not from his usual circle. They're confused, Riley murmured, fighting the urge to shrink under their scrutiny. Good, Ethan replied, his hand warm against the small of her back. Confusion leads to curiosity. Curiosity leads to conversation. He navigated the crowd with practiced ease, introducing Riley as the extraordinary photographer who captured what no one else could see. The phrase made her uncomfortable. It felt too close to truth for a charade. By the champagne fountain they encountered their first real test, Margaret Winslow, notorious socialite and walking tabloid. Ethan, darling! Margaret air-kissed both his cheeks. And who is this interesting choice, Sting? The insult veiled as curiosity made Riley's cheeks burn, but Ethan's arm tightened around her waist. Margaret, meet Riley Parker, the woman who's made me reconsider every relationship I've ever had. The boldness of his statement caught both women off guard. Riley recovered first, extending her hand. Pleasure to meet you. Margaret's handshake was limp, her assessment scathing. I didn't realize Ethan had developed a taste for artistic types. I've always appreciated art, Ethan replied smoothly. I just needed someone to help me understand its depth. It was performance art, Riley realized. Ethan wasn't just playing a role. He was crafting a narrative that the room consumed eagerly, and she was both canvas and brush in his creation. Throughout the evening, she watched him charm and deflect, always keeping her close, occasionally looking at her with manufactured affection that seemed genuine enough to fool everyone, including sometimes Riley herself. You're good at this, she whispered during a momentary reprieve. I've had practice, he replied, his smile not quite reaching his eyes. The world sees what it expects to see. And what do they expect to see tonight? A man reformed by the right woman. His gaze slid past her to a small group of distinguished gentlemen across the room. Speaking of which, those are our targets. The Preston Group. Old Connecticut money with traditional values and deep pockets. They're who this show is for. Riley followed his gaze. They don't look impressed. They will be. Jonathan Preston values family above all else. He's rejected my proposals twice, citing concerns about my commitment issues. Tonight, we plant the seed. Next week at dinner, we'll close the deal. The calculation in his voice reminded Riley of what this really was, a transaction. She was a prop in Ethan's elaborate business strategy, nothing more. The Preston dinner proved even more challenging than the gala. Held at Jonathan Preston's Upper East Side townhouse, it was intimate, leaving nowhere to hide. 4 couples, including Ethan and Riley, gathered around an antique dining table that probably cost more than Riley's entire studio. Jonathan Preston was in his 60s, with shrewd eyes that missed nothing. His wife Caroline was equally perceptive. Riley felt their assessment from the moment she entered their home. So, Miss Parker, Jonathan said once dinner was served, Ethan tells us you're quite the artist. How did you two meet? They had rehearsed. Riley spoke about the gallery opening, weaving truth with fiction. I wasn't interested initially, she added, a genuine detail that made Ethan's lips quirk. Riley values substance over status, Ethan said, covering her hand with his. It's refreshingly honest in our circle. Caroline Preston studied them. And what changed your mind about him, dear? Riley hadn't prepared for this question. She looked at Ethan, seeing not the businessman but the brief vulnerability she'd captured in that unguarded photograph. I saw something in him that he doesn't show many people, she said truthfully. Something real beneath the success and confidence. Ethan's hand tightened on hers, surprise flickering in his eyes. This wasn't their script. We all wear masks, Riley continued. My work is about finding what's behind them. With Ethan, I saw someone worth knowing beyond the public persona. The table had gone quiet. Jonathan Preston studied them both, then nodded almost imperceptibly. Well, he finally said, it seems Ethan has found someone who sees clearly. That's rare in our world. Later that night, as the car took them back to Manhattan, Riley felt emotionally drained. The constant performance, the watchful eyes, the delicate balance of truth and deception, it was exhausting. You were perfect, Ethan said quietly. Preston texted me after we left. They want to move forward with the deal. Riley leaned her head against the cool window. Congratulations. Your investment in me is paying off. Something in her tone made Ethan turn toward her. What you said about seeing something real in me, that wasn't rehearsed. No, she admitted, it wasn't. What exactly do you think you saw? Riley met his gaze. Someone who's been playing a role for so long he's forgotten it's not really him. For a moment, something vulnerable flickered across his face, the same expression she'd captured in that photograph. Then his usual mask slipped back into place. Careful, Riley, he said lightly. Remember, this is just business. But as weeks passed, the lines between performance and reality began to blur. Their public appearances felt less rehearsed. Ethan's touch lingered longer than necessary. Riley found herself looking forward to their time together, enjoying his wit, his unexpected knowledge of art, even his complicated relationship with his own success. One evening, after a particularly convincing display of affection at a restaurant opening, Riley confronted him in the privacy of his car. This is getting complicated, she said. Ethan didn't pretend to misunderstand. Isn't that what you do? Complicate simple narratives. Not when I'm part of the story. She looked out the window at the passing city lights. I'm starting to forget what's real. Maybe that's not a bad thing, he suggested quietly. But Riley knew better. Her entire professional life was built on distinguishing authenticity from performance. Getting lost in Ethan's carefully crafted world was dangerous. especially when she was beginning to care about the man behind the mask. The exhibition opening blindsided Riley completely. She stood frozen in the center of the Soho gallery, surrounded by her own work, enormous prints of her most intimate portraits displayed on pristine white walls. Photographs she'd taken years ago, when passion rather than survival had driven her art. Images she'd never had the resources to print at this scale, now professionally mounted and dramatically lit. "Surprise," Ethan said quietly beside her, watching her reaction carefully. "Do you like it?" Riley couldn't find words. Her throat constricted as she moved from one photograph to the next. Each captured a moment of human vulnerability. A homeless veteran's weathered face showing both strength and defeat. A ballet dancer's exhausted determination as she removed her pointe shoes. A child's open wonder at first seeing the ocean. "How did you?" She finally managed. "Your external hard drives weren't well protected," he admitted. "I had my team copy your portfolio while you were being fitted for clothes." The invasion of privacy should have angered her. Instead, Riley felt exposed, as if she herself was hanging on these walls rather than her subjects. "You had no right," she whispered. "Probably not," he agreed without remorse, "but I had means and opportunity, and I wanted to remind you of who you really are." People filled the gallery now, critics, collectors, influencers, all studying her work with serious expressions and murmured conversations. Riley recognized faces from art magazines and museum boards. "What have you done, Ethan? Given you the audience you deserve." He guided her toward the center of the room. "These people can launch your career beyond that studio. They just needed to see what I saw." Mia appeared, eyes wide with excitement. "Riley, why didn't you tell me? This is incredible." She lowered her voice. "There's a curator from MoMA here. MoMA, Riley." Before Riley could respond, Vanessa smoothly intercepted them. "We need to start the introductions. Everyone's asking for the artist." The next few hours passed in a blur. Riley was guided from person to person, accepting praise and business cards, explaining her process to reverent listeners, while Ethan stayed nearby, watching with an expression she couldn't quite read. By the time the last guest departed, Riley felt emotionally flayed. She found Ethan in a quiet corner, staring at one particular photograph, an elderly woman smiling despite the oxygen tubes in her nose, her eyes showing both acceptance and fear. "My grandmother," Riley said, joining him, "the day she told me she was stopping treatment." Ethan didn't look away from the image. "It's extraordinary. You can see everything she feels, the terror, the peace, the love for whoever's behind the camera." "That was the first photograph that mattered to me," Riley said softly. "Not because it was good, but because it was true." Finally, he turned to her. "That's what I've been trying to tell you. Your work deserves to be seen, not compromised for rent money." So this was, what, a gift, another business strategy. "Does it matter?" He gestured around the gallery. 3 pieces sold already. The Times critic is writing a review. Your talent finally has the platform it deserves." Riley should have been elated. Instead, she felt a creeping sense of manipulation. "You're controlling my career now, too." "I'm investing in it," he corrected. "There's a difference." "Is there?" She searched his face. "Or is this just another acquisition for you?" Something hardened in his expression. "You're not being acquired, Riley. You're being elevated. Without my knowledge or consent." She crossed her arms. "That seems to be a pattern with you." "Would you have agreed if I'd asked?" When she didn't answer, he continued. "I made a judgment call. Sometimes opportunity doesn't ask permission." Riley wanted to be angry, but looking around at her work displayed as she'd always dreamed, large, impactful, respected, she couldn't summon the appropriate outrage. Instead, she felt the disorienting sensation of getting exactly what she wanted through means she couldn't approve. "I don't know whether to thank you or walk away," she admitted. "Why not do both?" he suggested. "Thank me tonight. Consider walking away tomorrow." Later, in the back of his car, Riley finally asked the question that had been building since the exhibition began. "Why are you doing all this? The real reason, not the business explanation." Ethan was silent for a long moment, watching the city lights reflect off the rain-slicked streets. Perhaps I'm tired of everyone seeing exactly what they expect to see. And what do they expect? Ethan Blake, the successful entrepreneur, the ruthless businessman, the shallow playboy. His voice carried no self-pity, just statement of fact. No one's interested in anything deeper. I am, Riley said quietly. His eyes met hers in the dimness. For a heartbeat, Riley thought he might reach for her. Instead, he looked away. Then you'd be the first. The weeks following the exhibition transformed Riley's professional life. Galleries that had previously ignored her submissions now called daily. Magazines requested shoots. Her social media followers multiplied exponentially. Most importantly, she received commission offers that would allow her to pursue the documentary projects she'd long dreamed of. Accompanying this professional ascension was the increasingly convincing performance of being Ethan Blake's girlfriend. They developed rhythms and inside jokes that felt startlingly authentic. In public, his hand would find hers without choreography. His lips would brush her temple in a gesture that seemed more habit than calculation. But Riley never forgot the arrangement's expiration date. However real it felt, their relationship had clear terms. 3 months, no extensions. One rainy Tuesday, having just returned from a successful meeting with a magazine editor, Riley arrived at her studio to find it transformed. New lighting equipment, a professional backdrop system, even a small area, set up for client meetings, all top-of-the-line gear she had coveted but never could afford. A note sat on her desk. Tools worthy of your talent, E. She called him immediately. You need to stop buying me things. Hello to you too, Ethan replied, the smile evident in his voice. I'm serious, Ethan. First the exhibition, now this? People will think that I'm a supportive boyfriend investing in his talented girlfriend's career. Shocking, Riley sighed, running her hand over a camera lens that probably cost more than her monthly rent. This isn't part of our agreement. Consider it advance payment for that charity function next week. The Preston investors will be there, and we need to be. Convincing. We're already convincing, she countered. Too convincing. A brief silence. Is that a problem? Riley didn't know how to answer. Yes, it was a problem that she caught herself thinking about him when he wasn't around. Yes, it was. A problem that his touch no longer felt like performance. Yes, it was a problem that she sometimes forgot this wasn't real. No, she lied. No problem. That evening, working late in her upgraded studio, Riley found herself searching online for information about Ethan, something she'd deliberately avoided before. The usual articles appeared. Profiles of his business success, gossip about former relationships, photographs of him at exclusive events. Nothing revealing the man she was beginning to know. Then she found an older article from before his wealth and status. A small feature about promising startups with a photograph of a younger Ethan. His face was leaner, his clothes less polished, but his eyes held the same intensity. The article mentioned his background briefly, raised by a single mother in a working-class Boston neighborhood. Scholarship to MIT, first business started from his dorm room. Riley stared at the image, seeing hints of the hunger and determination that must have driven him from those beginnings to his current life. What had that journey cost him? Her phone rang, interrupting her thoughts. Ethan's name appeared on the screen. I was just thinking. About you, she answered, closing the browser tab. Good thoughts, I hope. His voice sounded different, tired, perhaps. I was wondering who you were before you became Ethan Blake, business mogul. A pause. Why the sudden interest in ancient history? Because I'm starting to think it's not so ancient. That maybe that person is still there underneath everything else. He didn't respond immediately. When he did, his tone was lighter, deflecting. I'm calling because I need a favor. My mother's in town, unexpectedly. She wants to meet you. Riley sat up straighter. Your mother? You never mentioned... Because she wasn't supposed to be relevant to our arrangement. But she saw the Page 6 coverage and now wants to meet the woman who's finally settled her son down. He sighed. I can make excuses if you'd rather not. Meeting Ethan's mother certainly wasn't in their contract, yet Riley found herself curious about the woman who had raised him alone, who might provide insights into the man behind the persona. No, I'll meet her. When? Tomorrow night, my place. He hesitated. Thank you. This is beyond our agreement. Consider a professional curiosity, Riley said. I want to see where the real Ethan Blake came from. Judith Blake was nothing like Riley had imagined. In her early 60s, she carried herself with the quiet dignity of someone who had worked hard her entire life. Her clothes were simple but elegant, her Boston accent slight but detectable. She embraced Riley warmly upon meeting her. Finally, she said, holding Riley at arm's length to examine her, someone with substance. Over dinner in Ethan's penthouse, Judith shared stories of Ethan's childhood, his determination to build a better life, his protection of her through difficult times, his relentless work ethic even as a boy. Riley watched Ethan's face as his mother spoke. He seemed both embarrassed and proud, his usual polish softened in his mother's presence. He was always so serious, Judith told Riley over dessert. Even as a child, like he was carrying the weight of our whole family on his shoulders, I worried. He'd never learned to just be happy. Riley glanced at Ethan, who was studying his wine glass with unusual concentration. He's still pretty serious, she offered. But different with you, Judith observed, her eyes sharp. I can see it, he laughs more easily. Ethan cleared his throat. Mother, I'm sure Riley doesn't want to hear all this. Actually, I do, Riley contradicted, enjoying his discomfort. Please continue. Judith smiled knowingly. He called me after your first date. First time he'd called just to tell me about a woman in years. Riley's eyebrows rose. Did he? What did he say? That you challenged him, Judith replied. That you weren't impressed by any of the things most people are impressed by. Ethan stood abruptly. Coffee? I'll make some. When he disappeared into the kitchen, Judith leaned forward. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it. I haven't seen him this present in years. Riley felt a pang of guilt. This woman believed her son had found someone genuine, when in reality, their relationship was as carefully constructed as one of Ethan's business deals. I'm not sure I'm doing anything special, Riley said carefully. You see him, Judith said simply. The real him, not the facade. Do you know how rare that is in his world? Everyone wants something from Ethan. His money, his connections, his status. No one wants just him. The kitchen door swung open as Ethan returned with coffee, saving Riley from having to respond to this uncomfortable truth. Later, as they said goodbye to Judith, she embraced Riley again. Don't let him push you away when he gets scared, she whispered. He doesn't know how to let people close anymore. After the door closed, an awkward silence fell between them. Finally, Riley spoke. You didn't tell me your mother thought this was real. Ethan loosened his tie. I didn't realize she did until she insisted on meeting you. She loves you very much, Riley observed. She's biased, he replied, but his voice held affection. Thank you for tonight. You were convincing. I wasn't acting, Riley admitted. I liked her. She helped me understand some things about you. Such as why you work so hard to control everything and everyone around you. She held his gaze. Why you've built all these walls. Something vulnerable flickered in his eyes. Careful, Riley. Psychoanalysis wasn't in our contract. Neither was meeting your mother or having you bankroll my career, she countered. We're both coloring outside the lines here. He moved closer, close enough that she could smell his cologne. And where does that leave us? Riley knew she should step back, maintain professional distance. Instead, she found herself studying the face she'd captured countless times with her camera, the strong jawline, the intensity in his eyes, the mouth that rarely showed genuine smiles. Confused, she answered honestly. I can't tell what's real anymore. His hand came up to brush a strand of hair from her face, the touch lingering. Maybe that's because reality is overrated. For a moment, Riley thought he might kiss her, part of her, a larger part than she, wanted to admit, hoped he would. Instead, he stepped back, the moment broken. "I should go," she said, reaching for her coat. As she rode the elevator down from his penthouse, Riley's phone buzzed with a text from Mia. "Gallery called. Someone bought all your remaining exhibition pieces. Paid double asking price, anonymous buyer." Riley didn't need to guess who that buyer was. The question was why. Was it a genuine appreciation of her work, or just another way for Ethan to control the narrative of their relationship? And why was she finding it increasingly difficult to care about the distinction? The photograph that changed everything wasn't supposed to exist. Riley had deleted it, or thought she had, that first day in her studio when Ethan had begun undressing. The moment when his guard had dropped, revealing something raw and vulnerable beneath his perfect veneer. She'd replaced it with more conventional portraits, professional and polished, exactly what the business world expected from Ethan Blake. Yet, somehow there it was, 15 feet tall on the cover of ArtView magazine's annual Breakthrough Artists issue. Riley stared at the newsstand in disbelief. Her name in bold white letters beneath a hauntingly intimate portrait of one of New York's most powerful men, looking not powerful at all, but human and exposed. The image showed Ethan bare-chested, his expression caught between arrogance and vulnerability, revealing a depth of complexity that contradicted his public image. Her phone was already ringing. Vanessa, Ethan's publicist. "Have you seen it?" Vanessa's voice was tightly controlled. "I'm looking at it right now," Riley replied, still stunned. "I don't understand how this happened. I deleted that photo." "Apparently not thoroughly enough," Vanessa said coldly. "Ethan needs to see you. Now." An hour later, Riley sat in Ethan's office, a glass and steel monument to success on the 50th floor of a midtown skyscraper. Unlike his apartment's surprising warmth, this space was designed to intimidate, and today it served that purpose perfectly. Ethan stood at the window, his back to her, silhouetted against the Manhattan skyline. The magazine lay on his desk between them. "I didn't authorize this," Riley said immediately. "I deleted that photo after I took it, I swear." "And yet, here it is," he replied, without turning. "Quite an extraordinary coincidence that the one image I specifically didn't want public is now everywhere." "You think I planned this?" Riley's disbelief turned to anger. "Why would I do that? Fame? Money? Career advancement?" Now he turned, his expression controlled, but his eyes cold. "It certainly worked. You're the talk of the art world, the photographer who revealed Ethan Blake's soul." Riley stood, her own anger rising. "That's not who I am, and if you believe it is, then you don't know me at all." "Do I?" He moved closer. "What I know is that my investors are calling, questioning my judgment. My competitors are circling, sensing weakness, all because of this." He gestured to the magazine. "It's just a photograph, Ethan. It's never just a photograph with you. That's your whole philosophy, isn't it? Capturing what people hide." His voice turned bitter. "Congratulations, you've succeeded brilliantly." Riley fought to keep her composure. "I'm telling you I didn't do this. If you don't believe me, then our arrangement is over. Professional and whatever else this has become." For a moment they stared at each other, the tension between them electric and dangerous. Then Ethan's office door opened without warning, and Vanessa entered, looking uncharacteristically flustered. "We found out what happened," she announced. It wasn't Riley. It was the editorial intern at ArtView, some photography student who interned at the gallery where Riley's exhibition was held. She had access to the original files and submitted this, one without authorization. The revelation hung in the air between them. Riley felt a wave of vindication, quickly followed by renewed anger at Ethan's assumption of her guilt. "I'll wait outside while you apologize," she said pointedly. Vanessa, reading the room, quickly retreated. When the door closed, Ethan's rigid posture finally relaxed. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "I jumped to conclusions." "Yes, you did," Riley crossed her arms. "You immediately assumed the worst about me. After everything." "After everything," he repeated. You mean after I orchestrated a fake relationship that's made us both more successful? After I've been paying you to pretend to care about me? The words stung more than they should have. Is that really all this has been to you, a transaction? Something flickered across his face. Doubt, perhaps, or regret. It started that way, you know that. And now? She pressed. Before he could answer, his phone buzzed with yet another crisis demanding attention. The moment of potential honesty vanished as quickly as it had appeared. I need to handle this, he said, professional mask firmly back in place. We'll talk later. But they didn't talk later. Instead, they fell back into the rhythms of their arrangement, attending events, playing their parts, both carefully avoiding any discussion of the photograph or what it revealed. Their 3-month contract deadline approached with a strange tension neither acknowledged. Riley's career, meanwhile, soared to heights she'd never imagined. The ArtView cover had catapulted her into the spotlight. Museum curators requested meetings. International assignments filled her inbox. Everything she'd ever worked for was within reach. Yet success felt hollow without honesty. Each time she looked at Ethan, across a crowded room beside her in his car, across the table at yet another strategic dinner, she saw the man from the photograph, not the carefully constructed public persona. She knew he was hiding, and worse, she was helping him do it. 10 days before their arrangement was set to conclude, Riley made a decision. She cancelled her appointments and went to Ethan's office unannounced, determined to force a conversation. Neither of them wanted to have. His assistant tried to stop her. "Mr. Blake is in meetings all day." "He'll see me," Riley insisted, striding past her toward Ethan's office. She found him hunched over financial reports, looking more tired than she'd ever seen him. He glanced up, surprise quickly replaced by his usual composed expression. "This is unexpected." "We need to talk," Riley said, closing the door behind her, "about what happens when our 3 months are up." Ethan leaned back in his chair. "I assumed we'd issue a statement about an amicable parting. You'll be the one who ended things, of course. Better for your image." "Is that what you want?" she asked directly. "An amicable parting, back to our separate lives." Something unreadable crossed his face. "What we want isn't relevant. This was always temporary." "That's not an answer." "It's the only answer I have." He stood, moving to the window, his typical retreat when conversations became too personal. "You've gotten what you needed from this arrangement. Your career is taking off. My investment in the Preston Group is secured. Mission accomplished on both sides." Riley felt frustration building. Even now he was hiding. "Turn around and look at me, Ethan." When he didn't move, she crossed the room and physically turned him to face her. The contact sent an electric current between them. "Tell me this is still just business," she challenged. "Tell me you feel nothing real for me." His eyes met hers, and for once she saw no calculation there, only conflict. "What do you want me to say, Riley? That I've broken my own rules? That somewhere in this charade I started forgetting it wasn't real? If that's the truth, yes." He pulled away, running a hand through his usually perfect hair. "The truth is, I don't do real relationships. They don't fit. My life, my work requires focus and control, things that get compromised when emotions get involved." "That's fear talking," Riley said, "not logic." "Is it?" His voice hardened. "My world operates on certain principles. Showing vulnerability is showing weakness. That photograph you took, the one you claim to have deleted, it exposed something I've spent years keeping hidden." "And that terrifies you," Riley realized. "Not that others saw it, but that I did." The silence that followed confirmed her. Words. Ethan Blake, who controlled everything and everyone in his orbit, couldn't control how she saw him or how that made him feel. "Our arrangement ends in 10 days, he finally said. "It's better for both of us if we stick to the plan." Riley felt her heart constrict. Better for who? The real you or the version you show the world? They're the same person. We both know that's not true. She turned to leave, then paused. At the door. "For what it's worth, I prefer the man in that photograph to the one you pretend to be." That night, alone in her studio, Riley faced her own moment of truth. The past months had transformed her life professionally, yet left her personally adrift. She'd fallen for a man who might not exist outside glimpses and fragments, a man who himself might not know who he really was anymore. Her phone vibrated with a text from Mia. "You need to see this." Attached was a link to a breaking business. News story: Blake Industries acquires Parker Visuals. Entrepreneur purchases girlfriend's photography studio and all works. Riley stared at the headline in disbelief, then fury. Without thinking, she grabbed her jacket and keys, determination propelling her across the city to confront Ethan. His penthouse doorman recognized her, allowing her up without announcement. When the elevator doors opened, she found Ethan in his living room nursing a whiskey, looking unsurprised by her arrival. "You bought my studio?" she demanded without preamble. "My work, everything?" He didn't deny it. "I made your landlord an offer he couldn't refuse. The building will be renovated into proper studios. You'll have the top floor." "Without asking me? Without even telling?" "Me?" Riley's voice rose. "You had no right." "I had every right. It's business, Riley. Investment in a promising asset." "I am not an asset." The words echoed in the spacious room. "I'm a person who trusted you." Ethan's expression remained impassive. "I secured your future. You'll never have to worry about rent or resources again. Your artistic freedom is protected." "My freedom?" She laughed bitterly. "You've taken my freedom by making me dependent. On you. Everything I've achieved, everything I own, it's all tied to you now. That's not freedom, Ethan, that's control." Something shifted in his eyes, a realization, perhaps, or recognition. "That wasn't my intention." "Wasn't it?" Riley moved closer. "You buy people, Ethan. You collect them like those art pieces on your walls. When you can't charm someone into your orbit, you find other ways to bind them to you." "That's not fair," he said quietly. "No, it's not fair. None of this is fair." Tears threatened, but Riley fought them back. "I believed in you, in the person. I thought I saw beneath all this. But maybe there's nothing there. Maybe you've been playing the role so long you don't know how to be real anymore." The pain that flashed across his face was so genuine it stopped her cold. "You're right," he said so softly she almost missed it. "I don't know how to be real anymore. Not with anyone. Not even myself." The admission hung between them, devastating, in its honesty. For the first time since she'd known him, Ethan Blake wasn't performing or calculating or controlling. He was simply exposed, vulnerable in a way no photograph could ever capture. Riley felt her anger crumbling in the face of his honesty. "Then learn," she said more gently. "Start by undoing this acquisition. Let me succeed or fail on my own terms. And if I can't?" The question wasn't about business capability, but emotional readiness. What if I don't know how to care about someone, without trying to control the outcome? "Then you'll lose me," Riley answered simply, "because I can't be one more thing you own, Ethan." She turned to leave, but his voice stopped her. "The 3 months," he said. "Our deal. I want to cancel it." Riley felt her heart sink. "I see." "No, you don't." He moved toward her. "I don't want to pretend anymore, Riley. Whatever this is between us, I want it to be real, if you're willing to try." The word she'd both longed for and feared hung in the air between them. Riley searched his face for any sign of calculation or strategy, finding only uncertainty and hope. "How do I know this isn't just another performance?" she asked softly. "You don't." His honesty was disarming. "Neither do I, but I want to find out." Riley thought of the photograph that had started all this, the unguarded moment she'd captured when Ethan's mask had slipped. She'd seen something authentic then. The question was whether that authenticity could survive outside the frame, in the messy reality of an actual relationship. "I need time," she finally said, "and space, to think about what I want without your influence." Something like disappointment crossed his face, but he nodded. "I understand. And I need you to undo the studio purchase. Immediately." "Consider it done." Riley stepped into the elevator, emotions warring within her. As the doors began to close, Ethan spoke again. "Riley," he said, his voice uncharacteristically uncertain, "that photograph you took, the one on the magazine cover. What about it? It's the first time anyone's seen me," he said simply. "The real me." The doors closed before she could respond, leaving her alone with the weight of his words and the decision that awaited her. A week passed with no communication between them. Riley threw herself into work, accepting a documentary project in Detroit that had been on her wish list for years, photographing the resilience of a community rebuilding itself. Away from New York, away from Ethan's world of wealth and power, she found clarity in the honest struggles and triumphs of people fighting for their neighborhood's future. Her tiny rented room above a family-owned bookstore couldn't have been further from the luxury she'd grown accustomed to in Ethan's orbit. Yet something about the simplicity felt right, genuine in a way her recent life hadn't been. Each night she reviewed the day's photographs, seeing authenticity in every frame. These weren't posed portraits or carefully constructed narratives. They were real moments of human experience. A grandmother teaching neighborhood children to garden in a reclaimed lot. Former factory workers repurposing abandoned buildings into community spaces. Artists transforming decay into beauty. One evening, sitting cross-legged on her bed with her laptop, Riley noticed an email from Vanessa. The subject line read simply, "You should see this." Inside was a link to a business news article. Against her better judgment, Riley clicked it. Blake Industries restructures. CEO returns ownership to independent artists and small businesses. The EDEB article detailed how Ethan Blake had not only reversed the acquisition of Riley's studio, but had also transferred ownership of several small galleries and art spaces back to their original owners, with funding grants to ensure their continued independence. The business world was buzzing with theories about this unprecedented move by a man known for acquisitions, not divestitures. A quote from Ethan caught her eye. "Art and creativity cannot flourish under corporate control. They require freedom and independence, something I've recently come to understand more deeply." Riley stared at the screen, unsure what to think. Was this a genuine change of heart or an elaborate strategy to win her back? With Ethan, it was always difficult to separate authentic action from calculated performance. Her phone rang. Mia, calling from New York. "Have you seen the news?" Her friend's voice was excited. "Your boyfriend's gone completely off script. Wall Street thinks he's lost his mind." "He's not my boyfriend," Riley corrected automatically. "And yes, I saw it." "So?" Mia pressed. "What does it mean?" "I don't know," Riley admitted. "Maybe nothing. Maybe everything." After they hung up, Riley stepped outside onto the small balcony overlooking the street. Detroit's night air was cool, the cityscape so different from Manhattan's glittering skyline. Here the lights were scattered, resilient points of brightness amid shadows, much like the community itself. Her phone buzzed with a text. "Ethan. No strings, no expectations, just the truth." 3 days later, Riley returned to New York. She went straight to her studio, finding it exactly as she'd left it, with one addition, an envelope on her desk. Inside was a single sheet of paper with a handwritten note. "I've been learning to be real. If you want to see how that's going, come to the address below at 7 p.m. No performance this time, just me." The address was in Red Hook, Brooklyn, a waterfront area far from Ethan's usual Manhattan haunts. Riley debated with herself all day, ultimately deciding that curiosity, if nothing else, demanded she go. She found a converted warehouse at the address, its weathered exterior giving no hint of what waited inside. A security guard recognized her, opening the unmarked door without her needing to explain her presence. The interior stopped her in her tracks. The vast industrial space had been transformed into a working art studio, not the sleek Instagram-ready kind, but a genuine workspace with half-finished projects, paint splattered. Floors and the organized chaos of creative process, and in the center stood Ethan, dressed in jeans and a simple button-down shirt rolled at the sleeves, both spotted with paint. He looked so different from the polished entrepreneur she'd known, more relaxed, more present, somehow more substantial. "Welcome to my midlife crisis," he said with a self-deprecating smile. "At least that's what my board of directors is calling it." Riley moved deeper into the space, taking in the large canvases leaning against walls, the sculpting tools, the pottery wheel in one corner. "I didn't know you were an artist." "I wasn't. Not for a very long time." He gestured around the space. "I studied art before business school, did you know that? Before I decided creating things wasn't practical enough, wasn't secure enough." She shook her head, realizing how little she actually knew about his past. "I was good," he continued, leading her toward a back area where older works were stored. "Not great, but good. I could have built a life around it." He pulled out a canvas showing a Boston waterfront scene, painted with surprising sensitivity. The style was immature but showed genuine talent and emotional depth. "What happened?" Riley asked. Ethan's expression darkened. "Reality happened. My mother got sick my sophomore year. Our insurance was a joke. I needed money fast, so I put my tech skills to work, built a program I could sell. It worked too well." He glanced around the studio. 20 years later, here we are. The kid who wanted to create beauty became a man who only knew how to amass wealth. The honesty in his voice touched something in Riley. This wasn't the practiced charm she'd grown wary of, but something raw and more genuine. "Why are you showing me this?" "Because you were right," he said simply. "About all of it, about me hiding, about using control as a shield, about forgetting who I really was." He gestured around the studio. "This place, it's not a hobby or a tax write-off. It's where I'm trying to remember." Riley walked the perimeter of the space, studying his recent work. Abstract pieces mostly, full of energy and struggle, the work of someone wrestling to express something long suppressed. "The business moves," she finally said. "Returning the gallery ownerships. My studio. Was that part of this? Remembering?" "Yes." He followed a few steps behind her, careful to give her space. "I've spent years building a business on control and acquisition. It seemed right to start undoing that damage. And us?" She turned to face him. "Where do we fit into this transformation?" Ethan didn't answer immediately, choosing his words with care. "That's entirely up to you. I'm not offering a business arrangement this time. No terms, no expiration date. Just possibility." "That's terrifyingly vague," Riley observed. "Isn't that what real relationships are? Terrifying possibilities?" A smile touched his eyes. "At least that's what I'm told by people who've actually had them." Despite herself, Riley smiled back. "You realize this doesn't fix everything. You can't just trade one identity for another and expect all the problems to disappear." "I know." He moved closer, stopping just short of touching her. "I'm not fixed, Riley. I'm just finally willing to be broken where someone can see it." "Where you can see it." The vulnerability in his admission resonated with everything Riley believed about human connection. That genuine intimacy could only exist where perfect facades fell away, where the broken, messy truth was allowed into the light. "I can't promise this will work," she said honestly. "I'm not asking for promises, just a chance to be real together." He held out his hand. "No guarantees, no control, just truth." Riley looked at his outstretched hand, considering all that. Had brought them to this moment, a photograph that revealed too much, a carefully constructed facade, the unexpected discovery of something authentic beneath the performance. The journey from transaction to possibility. She took his hand. 6 months later, Riley's newest exhibition opened at a small independent gallery in Brooklyn. Unlike her previous show, this one had been entirely her choice, a documentary series on American identity, featuring portraits from Detroit alongside others from across the country. The central piece, hung where it couldn't be missed, was the photograph that had changed everything. Ethan's unguarded moment, now displayed by mutual consent. Beside it hung a new portrait she'd taken just weeks ago. Ethan in his studio, focused, intently on a canvas, paint on his hands, his expression open and absorbed in creation. The paired images told a story of transformation more powerful than words could express, from a man hiding behind perfection to one embracing the messy authenticity of his true self. "Aren't you worried what people will think?" Ethan asked, appearing beside her as they observed attendees' reactions to the portraits. About what? Dating a recovering control freak? She slipped her hand into his. About dating a subject. Doesn't it cross some professional boundary? Riley considered. This. Maybe. But I've learned something important about boundaries. They're meant to protect truth, not hide it. As the evening progressed, critics praised the exhibition's honesty. No one mentioned that the photographer and her most compelling subject were now a couple. Their relationship was secondary to the work itself, exactly as it should be. Later, alone in Riley's apartment, still modest despite her success, still authentically hers, Ethan brought out a small wrapped package. "It's not what you think," he said as she eyed it suspiciously. "No jewelry, no keys to some extravagant gift, just something that belongs to you." Riley unwrapped it carefully to find a USB drive. "What is this?" "Every photograph you've ever taken that I acquired." He sat beside her. "I'm returning ownership. To you. Completely and legally. What you do with them is entirely your decision." The gesture moved her deeply, not just the return of her work, but the willing surrender of control it represented. This wasn't the grand, attention-seeking gesture of Ethan Blake, business mogul. This was the authentic action of a man learning to love without possession. "Thank you," she said simply. "I'm learning," he replied, the words both acknowledgement of progress and admission of the journey still ahead. Riley set the drive aside and reached for her camera, the professional. One, not her phone. "May I?" He nodded, understanding what she was asking. No poses, no performance, just this moment between them, real and imperfect. The shutter clicked, capturing not a subject, but a partner. Not a persona, but a person. In the soft light of her apartment, Ethan Blake finally had no walls to hide behind, no masks to wear, no roles to play. For perhaps the first time in his adult life, he simply existed as himself, seen fully through the lens of someone who chose to stay, even knowing the truth. And Riley Parker, who had built her career on capturing human authenticity, discovered that sometimes the most powerful truths weren't found through observation, but through participation, through the risky, messy, wonderful experience of genuine connection. It wasn't perfect, it wasn't guaranteed, but it was real. An honest portrait of two people choosing vulnerability over performance, authenticity over image, love over control. And in the end, that was the only picture that truly mattered. Fimda Historia. Thank you for joining us on this journey through Riley and Ethan's story of authenticity and transformation. If their tale of finding truth beyond appearances resonated with you, we've created a special playlist of similarly moving narratives that explore the complexities of human connection. You'll find it by clicking the link on your left. Did Riley's struggle to maintain her artistic integrity while navigating success speak to you? Or perhaps Ethan's journey from control to vulnerability touched something in your own experience? We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed this story. Every day, we bring you unique narratives that delve into life's most profound questions and connections. Your support helps us continue sharing these emotional journeys with our community. Stay tuned for our next story, coming soon to those who follow our channel. Until then, remember that sometimes the most powerful portraits are the ones that reveal what we try hardest to hide.